Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Charmaine Postal was unable to attend the meeting, and so I, as the vice chair, will be running the meeting today. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 10:01 a.m. And before we move forward, I know that Charmaine normally takes notes, but I'm not able to handle running the meeting. I don't have her capabilities. So is there someone here who would be willing to take notes?
And
Go ahead, Keith.
thank you. I don't think we have a quorum yet, so if you give me 1 second.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Just counting it up. Hold on. Suzanne with a group?
We have 13 people on online.
I have a question. I have an email from Susan saying to disregard the agenda that was sent out, and I'm wondering if there's an updated agenda in our email, or if
I did send the updated one immediately after.
Okay.
I
And
believe I
it's-
have that.
It's also always attached to the invite.
Okay, just making sure I have the right one.
Okay, we are awaiting a determination of quorum. I can't see.
Right now, we don't have it. We have.
Okay,
We got
we will
2.
Cassandra's here as well.
Yeah, Cassandra, but you're not a voting member.
We will officially recess until we determine we have a quorum, which hopefully will be in the next minute or two.
Marcia Guthrie just going. So. So right now we're at 9. We need 11. I'm just counting again now.
Thank you.
Reginald's on. So currently we're at 9, and we actually need 10 because of the 2 that disbanded. So, and with Mr. Pagan in the room.
Are we able to do the presentations and start the meeting? We just can't adopt or approve minutes, right?
My
If we don't have
understanding, legal's here, though, is that we couldn't do anything, is what Mr. Harris told us.
Oh,
I think that's true in some organizations, Amanda.
Yeah, we usually do the presentations at our board meetings until quorum shows up, but don't adopt like any business or reconcile minutes. But I hadn't heard that we can't do
Maybe
anything.
it's because of sunshine rules, which a lot of nonprofits or other organizations aren't under. And I don't know, Marcia, if you're
Yes, CSC's under the sunshine.
okay.
We're talking about CSC board meetings. We'll do all of the
Got it.
call them fluff, but the things that doesn't require vote, doesn't require any of that generally. But you know, like you said, different spaces have different rules. So
We're double checking.
yeah, we'll await. I'll just mute.
Maybe one more will show up. I will say that some of the attachments, there is an attachment that summarizes when we get into the whole policy around our discussion. Hopefully I captured it, and then if we're able to continue, I'll give you my color coding and my recommendations.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Oswald, sometimes when you send the Google documents, we have to request access to open them. It's not automatic. Is there another way it can be sent so we could just open them without needing to wait for the access?
Thought everything was PDF'd. I apologize.
It is, but I don't know why I got that message when I was trying to open them earlier.
Okay, so you can't get it open?
No, I was not able to open them this morning when I was trying to look at them. It requested an access.
Before we are officially back on, I'm going to repeat that Charmaine normally took the notes on the minutes. Is there anyone willing to volunteer just for this meeting to do it?
We'll take notes as well in here with Susan and Janina.
Okay,
No one
thank
else
you.
is willing to.
Thank you. Are we at a quorum now? I think I saw one more person come on.
Did somebody, let me, hang on, let me have
Mariana?
a screen, 1 second.
Yeah.
Who just came in?
Mariana Blanco.
Oh yeah, she was board approved last meeting, so that counts, so we're good to go.
Okay.
Where, let me just find her little Brady Bunch box. Where is she?
She's online.
Oh, there you are. Sorry, Maria. Okay. All right. I guess no one
Okay.
wanted to be live in person over here.
Good morning. Again, the June 23rd, 2022 District Diversity and Equity Committee meeting is coming to order again at 10:12 a.m. And we will start by doing the roll call, which we
Roll
sort of did, but
Hi, good morning.
good morning.
Okay. All right, let's see. Aspira, Florida Incorporated.
We disbanded.
IET in Action,
Disbanded.
Black Chamber of Commerce of Palm Beach County, Coalition for Black Student Achievement, Myra Levy-Bazemore, CARD at FAU, Carrie Whittle,
Present online.
Compass, Amanda Canetti,
Present.
Compass, Rex Barnes, sorry, absent. Division of Blind Services, District ESC Advisory Committee, Carla Donaldson, and District ESC Advisory Committee, Kimberly Spiro.
Present.
Economic Council of Palm Beach County, Craig McKenzie. El Sol Jupiter's Neighborhood Resource Center.
I'm present online.
Great, okay. For the children, Reggie Durandis.
Here.
Thank you. For the children, or I'm sorry, Gold Coast Down Syndrome, Sue Davis Killian. Guatemalan Maya Center, Mariana Blanco.
Present online.
Welcome. Haitian American Solidarity Center.
They dissolve.
Dissolved. We can
Okay.
talk about that in a
Hispanic Education Coalition, Dr. Gabriela Mendez.
Present online.
Thank you. Palm Beach Council of PTA, Cassandra Corbin Thaddeus.
Present online as well.
Palm Beach County Council of PTAs, Charmaine Postal. Palm Beach County Human Rights Council, Emmy Kinney.
Present.
Puerto Rican Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Palm Beach County, Juan Pagan. Puerto Rican Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Palm Beach County, Evelyn Vargas. Tri-City Education Committee, Mary Evans. Tri-City Education Committee, Eddie Rhodes. Urban League of Palm Beach County, Latoya Stevenson. West Palm Beach Chapter of NAACP, Marcia Guthrie.
Present online.
Thank you. And West Palm Beach Chamber of NAACP, Rachel Mondesir. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the May minutes and updates. Does anybody have any corrections to the May minutes? If not, do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the last meeting minutes.
Sorry, this is Marcia. I have something that was omitted from the May minutes.
Okay.
At the end of the meeting, I had brought up a concern for a future discussion item regarding the facilities and the environments that our children were learning in and having access to on campus. And I had requested that we discuss it at a future meeting, what was happening with facilities in time for the school reopening. And I saw no recording of that conversation in the minutes.
We can
Okay.
add that. We'll add that.
Thank you. So hence it's not on today's agenda. But I still want to talk about it at some point when the agenda provides space for it. Thank you.
Therefore, I change my motion to move to approve the meeting minutes with correction.
I have a question. I just read the minutes and now I have so many things open here, I can't find them. But I was under the impression that the last part where it talks about the books and it says something like there was a discussion about not removing the books till they are analyzed. I think it was more than a discussion. It was a recommendation that we sent, and I'm not sure the minutes express that as a recommendation to the board. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find them again and I can't find them. I just closed the minutes and I can't find them. I don't know if you agree that
there
that's
was-
not here.
There was sidebar conversation. We had some discussion, but it was not an agenda item. And there was,
Oh.
there was not a vote.
Okay, I understand. Okay. Thanks for clarifying.
You're welcome.
Let's see. Sometimes online, I can't see who is raising their hand. Emmy?
You muted?
Thank you. That was a formal recommendation from the month prior to that. I think
It
that's
was,
correct.
yes.
But at the last meeting, it was just kind of a discussion, but we didn't make a formal recommendation.
I would need to go back and listen to that because I don't think it was a formal the month prior. I know it was discussed about making a formal recommendation, but I'll have to go back and listen to the meeting to double check that.
Yes, we made a recommendation to the board. Yes. I remember we voted on it and
I think we might have to go back. I'm not doubting that. Go back to the recording to be able to accurately reflect the discussion, or we could just come up with language right now to add to the minutes on that. Is someone else raising their hand? I heard the. I'll ask for people's assistance with that.
Well, we're going to have to go back to listen to see what
Okay, then
occurred during it.
Sorry,
Go
let me clarify. I'm not saying at this last meeting we made a formal recommendation. We did not. At the meeting before that one, we
April.
did make a formal recommendation and it was presented to the school board by Ms. Postal.
Okay,
That happened. This past meeting, we did not make an official recommendation or anything to do with that. So these minutes would not be edited.
do we have a motion then to approve the minutes with the addition and correction of adding the discussion about adding a discussion and recommendations regarding facilities before the school year started?
Reginald
So
moved.
move.
She already moved it, yep, she already
Right.
made a motion.
I
I
was
second.
all in favor?
Aye.
I
Aye. All opposed? Anyone opposed? Okay, then the minutes are approved. The next item on our agenda is public comment. I do see members of the public. Do you want to raise your hand if you want to speak at this time? Okay. If not, then we will proceed to the update from the Chief of Equity and Wellness.
And again, good morning, everyone. Happy June. Hopefully everybody's getting ready for some summer plans. I'm going to start with just some other legislative updates and some things that we're working on throughout the summer. House Bill 1421 deals with some of the school safety issues. In particular, there's part of that bill that talks about youth mental health first aid training. It's right there at the end, where it does call for school districts to have 80% of school employees to be trained by June of 2023. So essentially 1 year from now, 80% of our employees would have to go through that training. Some of you may have gone through that training. There's basically two options that we're working through. Obviously, for the number of employees that we have, that's a pretty major lift. There is a little bit of unclarity if they mean just school-based personnel or all employees throughout the district. The legislative previously under MSD has talked about all employees, and so DOE is looking at that. Currently, we're approximately about 22% of our employees that have gone through this particular training. Obviously, that's a huge lift to get done in a year, so it's going to be a big project that we're going to be working through to ensure that that occurs. The other big challenge around that, there's only one vendor throughout the that the state contracts with on this particular piece. Also, we had our Hispanic as well as our African American institutes this past month. African American institutes that we do every year. I forget how many years it's been now. Fantastic institutes that I really hope that in the future that we can really push the word out that for the public to come and attend these. We do get great speakers, and we do them every year. Yesterday it was a day around Haitian students and really looking through the eyes of our Haitian students, different speakers. It was just a fantastic day. Really plays into some of the priorities of this particular advisory committee to the board. So I'm hoping that we'll have more representation next year, and we'll try to make sure that everybody has that information to get the word out.
Mr. Oswald, this is Reggie. I have a suggestion for the youth mental health. Is there a way that you guys can have those who can attend in person to do it and then videotape it and then put it on boarding for those who cannot, attend? That way all the staff will be able to take the training.
Yeah, I know some were recorded, some are not, depending on who we contract. I'll check on and get back to you on that if we do post that after.
Thank you.
Thank you. There is an event tomorrow. I think it's 6 o'clock at Spady. And they have a speaker. We're going to look that up and send that information. You can type in the chat box. Is it tonight or tomorrow? The Delray Library. It's tonight at 6, and the speaker is.
They have a guy from Dr. Jermaine Scott.
Dr. Jermaine Scott. So if anybody's able to attend.
Thinking critically through African American history.
Thinking critically through African American history. Also, just let you know what's going on, an update about dual language program, a new program that we are starting at Rolling Green. We're very excited about this. Starts next year for kindergarten. A Haitian Creole program that we're starting in kindergarten. We've been looking at this for a number of years around a dual language program that supports our Haitian students, and essentially our biggest challenge was around the curriculum materials. So essentially what we have done is worked with a vendor and created materials from the bottom up. So actually writing out full blown curriculum to that authentically and respectfully represents our Haitian American students. Very excited about that. We have the math books just showed up. We had a public hearing at the last board meeting about these new materials. We've looked at throughout the entire country at different programs, so we're very excited about that. So stay tuned. But if you know of any parents who are in kindergarten, they're interested in having a dual language program in Creole, let us know. Very excited about that.
Mr. Oswald, I have a question for you regarding that.
Yes.
Let's say if a parent want the child to attend Rolling Green for that program, do they need to get a special request since if they're not in that school zoning?
Yes, we will work through our choice program.
Okay, all right, thank
And
you.
eventually, we're doing it through controlled enrollment, but we're moving it towards to be a choice program as well.
Okay, thanks.
What is the deadline for parents to request that change?
Right now, we still have openings, so probably up until we're full,
Okay.
we'll work with families on that. And also trying to educate the community that we do have this program coming. So any help that you can do through your respective organization would be great.
If you have flyers or something, I think many of us would be able to distribute it through social media and other means.
Great.
And Mr. Kate, also, we do have a radio program every Saturday on WPBR 1340 from 2 to 3. Any one of you can just call in the radio and then we'll let you in to give any updates on any district matter.
Yes, and we have done a number of radio stations. The team's also gone out to a number of faith-based organizations to spread the word. So we're trying to get out there to let individuals know. But
Yeah, we have done some of that for you guys, but at the same time, something like this, like the Haitian Creole program, people would love to hear that.
Okay, Reginald, I'm going to have some of the team from Multicultural reach out to you if that's okay.
No, that would be fine.
I appreciate the help.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Also, the goal is to have our new strategic plan completely, hopefully, if all goes well, adopted in August. There's 4 big themes. Obviously, one around academics, another theme around student-centered culture, and a theme around employees and high-performing employees, and last one around mental health and wellness. So we're working through some of the initiatives around those particular pieces right now, but excited about this new work and how we can really support our new mission, or how we educate, affirm, and inspire our students in an equity-embedded system. Kimberly.
I raised my hand because members of this committee who have been here for a long time are aware that even in previous strategic planning, we asked as members of our committee to be kept aware of the different initiatives as part of the strategic plan, because almost everything the school district does has some type of equity and inclusion component to it. And so we can have some input before it's adopted. Is that possible for us to at least review some of the plan and have the opportunity to make a presentation before the board regarding anything that may not have been considered?
Previous meetings, we've pushed out, we've gotten, I think, close to 40,000 points of feedback from the community around the strategic plan. So there's been numerous opportunities for input.
Okay.
And so at this point, we're trying to nail down those specific initiatives, which will come to the board in August. Equity is centered around all of the themes. So our mission around equity embedded system, and one of our consultants, what we're working through, what does that look like? What are the metrics, and how would we measure that if as equity as a basis around any particular initiative?
Was
Cassandra?
one member of this committee representing the committee in the creation of the strategic plan? Did we participate in its creation, or are we just part of the community in the sense that we have the opportunity to give feedback to what was already created without our voice?
It was done through numerous meetings where individuals were able to respond to and address issues and or feedback to the creation. So as there wasn't a set committee that was strictly strategic plan that had representation from different groups, there wasn't that type of a format. Gabriella.
Cassandra wanted to speak.
Yes, thank you, Kimberly. So my question is similar, and that is, was there student voice anywhere?
Yes, there were numerous student focus groups that were conducted at a number of different high schools and an alternative school.
Okay. And one last question about this may or may not apply, but let me know if it doesn't. I know the last meeting we talked a little bit about, you mentioned a student advisory committee or something like that. I don't know if that's something that pertains to the strategic plan, or was that a separate consideration?
Yes, so thanks. So I did talk about that last meeting, and we did present the workshop to the board. I think it was well received. There's some feedback and tweaks from the board that will, and it'll be going for that's a separate, it's not necessarily, I mean, it will be connected down the road, but it's a separate initiative to lift student voice. So yeah, the student superintendent student advisory committee, it'll have its first read July 20th from the board, and adoption is set for, based on the timeline, I think it's early September. So from that point, we would move to create that.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. And going on with, how do we educate, affirm, and inspire, in particular with the affirm our students, and, feedback that I've heard throughout the year from this group, as we work to welcome back, as well as our board, our principals back for the new year. Our back to school kind of kickoff is the end of July. We are building in particular, the division that I oversee that really looks at Safe Schools initiatives, some of the conversations that you had, in particular around the bullying, and how are we ensuring that certain structures and systems are put in place in every school that need to occur, happen across the board. So we're building that in our welcome back meeting, a set of resources, some like boilerplate, as I call them, plug and play templates, where there's certain aspects and points that have to be shared with all students, as well parent groups. One of the big themes that we've heard through our discipline review committee, the DRC, is when students face an expulsion for a certain thing, is that bullying comes up, or they didn't turn to anybody for help. So how do we make sure that students know who they turn to for help and assistance? How do we work? One of my professional goals is really work towards how do we ensure that every student has at least one caring adult that they can identify, right, for that support system. So some of those themes we're building into our training as we go back, and expanding those type of resources. I'm engaged currently with, again, we have been as a district, but No Place for Hate with, why am I going blank? With ADL, thank you. So programs like that to make sure that we have one on every campus. Our Safe Schools Ambassadors program through our grant, the training around that is also, those things are occurring. Also with affirming, and the superintendent's meeting at Compass. So, the deputy superintendent has already met with the principal supervisors to work with the high schools around GSAs, making sure we have those in place. We've got a protocol to go out to schools regarding preferred name, to go out to schools, as well as we're working through ensuring that there's a restroom that are unisex bathrooms, and those have been discussed as well in the past. Another program working through, we talked about trying to re-engage students that have not come back to school or are considerably overage, so trying to look at a subgroup of alternative education around kids who are 2 or more years behind grade level, which obviously there's numerous issues with that population of students. So working through a program that try to get that started within a school. So more on that down the road. And lastly, I just want to let you know, so November 8th, Election Day, the school board will have a referendum on that agenda. You all are probably familiar with that particular 1 mil referendum that supports teacher retention supplements, school safety and mental health, and our career technical arts educators. So if any of your organizations are looking for a presentation to educate your respective organizations around the referendum, please do let me know so that we can have someone to, present to whatever particular group that would like us to educate them on that particular referendum and more of the specifics. And sorry, I went on, but I have a few things I want to get because I know we're not meeting next month. So
I'm going to ask if you have information about the school within a school program, possibly sending that out to our membership through Susan, because I know I'd be interested in it.
Yeah, I'm still in the pretty earlier design phases of that. So there are numerous logistics that I'm trying to work through, from instruction materials that can really, my goal is that because of the situation these students are, is that they can gain essentially 2 years in a year. And so how we design that and meet other policies is kind of how we're trying to be strategic, but also have a lot of social emotional support to ensure that we get these students' confidence back up and running so that they don't end up being a potential dropout.
Very good. Okay. Is there anything else in your report?
I am good. Thank you.
Okay, then I guess I'm up on the update from the subcommittee on district training. The subcommittee met this morning. We had expanded our time to 1.5 hours, and we are working on a rubric on which we can evaluate all the trainings that come before us. And we have kind of a draft that we will be distributing amongst ourselves and trying to refine at the next meeting. We also are aware that the new mandatory training for all staff members is that youth first aid training, which was mentioned before. That you have to go in person to see. I guess there was mention of having video recordings, but to actually experience the training, it's in person. So we're working on finding a location where we can be able to do that. A lot of our purpose, not only to critique the existing trainings, is to see where there are gaps in training that maybe staff and faculty are not exposed to something that is important to one of our constituencies. So we are kind of looking at it from a wider lens than just we like or don't like a particular training. Cassandra?
Yeah, just a question about that, Kimberly. Do we have a catalog right now of all the trainings that have been made available?
We have a list of some of them, and I am also reaching out to the school police because I think that that's a huge factor, but their trainings are arranged separately. but we are working with Dr. Busenik to get lists of trainings, and we're also considering trainings that have been state approved, so that we wouldn't have a problem bringing them to the school district. So some of the trainings that were offered last year, we had a lot of questions and concerns about, and so we're looking beyond what is actually offered to see if there's something that would be more up to date or more appropriate, and making recommendations as far as that goes. But Dr. Busenik is providing us with a list of kind of the mental and emotional SEL type learning, but then there's Safe Schools has a separate individual that we have to reach out to for the bullying trainings, which we feel are very important to our communities. And I think we're going to have to go to different departments to get these lists, but we started out with suicide prevention, and we're working through that right now, and then starting on bullying. And I'm also kind of having a side thing once we get the police trainings to kind of correlate that to what the rest of the schools staff or the people in the schools are receiving.
And if there's and so I have a question about vendors. Like, are the trainings from vendors that from vendors, or are they created in-house, these trainings? And so I just have some questions, but I'll
There's, and just not to jump, I mean, there's both. There's a lot of different legs to this. There's some that in-house that are created, some that are required to use an outside vendor. And there's many legs to it. So if you take, the bullying programs, right? You've got programs, and you've got training around statute to bullying, and then you've got programs, right, that really address students. So there's different facets to it. So that's why I think it gets more complicated. When you pull through the layers, you get to see the bureaucracy at its best. So
once we have the now I just went blank on the name, rubric, and have applied it to several trainings. Once we have that together, we're going to start presenting them to the overall group. There was a question I asked at the last meeting, and Charmaine, our chair, had mentioned her concerns about it, but that is the fact that currently the committee consists of all white females. It consists of people representing two aspects of the disability community and the LGBTQ communities. And we don't have anyone representing some very important constituencies. And although we don't want to raise quorum issues, which was something that our chair had mentioned, and we also respect the fact that all of us have incredibly busy schedules. We're always called upon to represent our communities and do a lot of work. However, I still want to propose to DDEC that we add at least 2 more members so that we get a more wide-ranging perspective. And I saw in the chat a recommendation Cassandra might be able to join, and she expressed an interest.
When do you meet?
We meet just before the meetings. We found it convenient to just come in early before these meetings. This month, for the first time, we tried it for an hour and a half, because as you can imagine, the number of trainings that the school district offers are huge, and we want to try to make an impact. So taking forever, I know we're getting organized now, but we want to actually start making an impact sooner rather than later. So we've added an hour and a half and then we do homework outside. We will review trainings on our own and then come back and discuss them. So Marcia also volunteered. The meeting time is a conflict.
No, I didn't volunteer. I think the last meeting.
No. I see what you said.
Yeah.
One of the things we discussed today was, and I understand the meeting conflict, was to take our rubric and take some of the trainings and offer DDEC the opportunity to review the trainings and at least provide I have migraines, so please forgive me if I'm provide their input. The rubric is going to have the numbers and evaluation, but it's also going to have a column for notes and comments. And so if someone isn't able to attend our meetings but provides their scores and the comments, that would be helpful. So I think we're going to take two actions, and one is to we'll send out the trainings and training list and the rubric once we have that finalized to everybody in DDEC to provide input. And then we also would like to have a couple more committee members who can represent different perspectives.
How are you doing with the work of creating the rubric? I could help with that because I know about rubrics and I teach my students how to create rubrics. So I think I could be useful on that, unless you're already done with that.
No, it's in progress. Would
Okay.
you be interested in joining the subcommittee, or are you also in a situation of conflict?
I can so far, but I don't know. Next term, I may need to teach more classes, so depends on starting August. I don't know, but so far I can start, and then if I'm overwhelmed with work, I may say sorry, but I'll try. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll write my email address here in the chat.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So that is the presentation for the training committee. So the next item on the agenda is finalizing the policy revisions. And I'm wondering if Keith doesn't mind taking the lead on discussing that.
Yes, thank you. And so let me try to share my screen on here. Okay, so I tried to break down, and so this is attached. If you're here in person, you got a hard copy, but if not, Marsha, were you able to open the one that's DDEC recommendations? Hopefully you all were able to pull this one up. I'm not sure why PDF is asking for permission, but I'll have to check my IT after. If not, I'm going to
be accessed, but I'll try again now.
Okay. So this is a document hopefully you can open. And so what I tried to first go through is the special populations of students that we discuss that may not have representation or potential representation of more. So I kind of listed through those students and try to get some numbers. These numbers are somewhat, estimates, right? So when we talk about homelessness, obviously someone could be experiencing homelessness for a period of time, and it rotates. And then if we actually have identified them, foster care, obviously a rolling type number. This is a number that we actually have identified. The court involved and DJJ, again, similar. Caregiving youth, rough estimates from Florida statistics, working through American Caregiving Youth through those who know County. And then if I go down to, for example, Haitian American students, so our Haitian population we don't obviously have that in the city that's marked off. This is based off parents who have indicated that particular language, which is around 15,000. So we really think that number is probably under what is actually the population we're actually serving. So and you can see I have some colors here. So my recommendations based on currently where we're at, and I'll drop down after, but currently we have two organization policies that have disbanded that represent our Haitian students, our Haitian population. So making that the first priority, to have an organization that will represent that particular group. My next representation group to potentially look at when we look at student outcomes, not necessarily maybe based off numbers, and then also understanding that some of these students can be duplicated, right? So you'll have some students in foster care who could potentially be homeless as well, right? If they're aged out and whatnot, there's, or court involved, that are also potentially homeless. So really looking at the yellow as potentially my recommendation, and then you all can discuss after, but looking at those students in foster care and court involved, and then we'll talk in a moment about how many we want to get to potentially. And then lastly, students experiencing homelessness. And then if potentially, depending on, there's an organization I'm waiting to hear back still from Kevin regarding the Division of Blind Services of the Florida Department of Education. If they're not going to add in a representation, potentially looking at another organization that represents students with disabilities. Obviously, there's other student populations on this particular list that we discussed. I think it's something that we need to keep in the forefront as we discuss. Also, currently in policy, there's 22 organizations. I've noted that I think it's 3 actually that have disbanded. Aspirita and our 2 Haitian organizations, and then we're waiting to hear back from Blind Services. We then also, we discussed possibly trying to get to a number of, I think, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong too, when we discussed possibly not more than 25, and I think even that was maybe too much, and maybe it was 23, but I thought I wrote it down somewhere, but I cannot find it anywhere in my notes, so hopefully someone else has better memory. We talk about where we want to try to get to. And then in this next section, these are the potential organizations that we just discussed. I'm just trying to put out the notes of who we discussed through our conversations that may represent some of those areas that we talked about. And we did talk, and I think Dr. Robinson brought up, potentially looking at some non-voting, and I think you all brought up, we had the discussion around non-voting representation. So for our teachers union, would we want a CTA representation there? For our principals association, would we want, or school-based administrator association, would we want someone representing that group? And then I did add on my own, like SEIU, there's other collective bargaining units that represent different groups. Would we want to potentially look at those as well? I'll stop there for a moment and maybe go into some potential questions. And maybe if we first take the special populations of students and open up a discussion there from where we left off last time around my recommendations or something that's missing or other potential recommendations from the committee. So Kim, turn it back over to you.
Thank you. I just wanted to raise, as far as disabilities, the largest disability group in the district is learning disabilities, and we have LDA interested in joining. So once again, I'm going to, if we add a disability representative, specifically from an organization, that might be a good one, because it is a very large population in our school district. Cassandra?
Yeah, and I want to add that there was a conversation about Connect to Greatness being a possible organization representing African American and Haitian American Black boys. So I also did not see them on there as well.
Well, could they qualify as a Haitian group? Because I think the list doesn't have actual organizations. It just has populations that need to be served.
Oh, I was looking at the possible agencies discussed.
Okay.
No,
Yeah,
that Cassandra, you're right, that did come up. I'm going to add them right now. Connect to Greatness, correct?
That's right.
Oh, yeah. Can we see that part too? I can only see the top.
We're going to, 1 second. Let me just change the tab I'm sharing so I can, I got too many windows open.
Marcia, go ahead.
So I just had a question regarding how we are. I know we asked the district, and I really appreciate Mr. Oswald and his team coming back with the numbers, right? So we can have an understanding of the population. But I guess my question is, how are we considering making sense of these numbers, right? Because just because you are a smaller in number, you might be smaller in number, but more vulnerable, right? Have higher complexities. And we know that many of these groups intersect and overlap with one another. Many children who are in foster care may also be court involved and involved in the JJ and JS systems, as well as they could be homeless, right? So we know that these numbers aren't necessarily unduplicated because, you know, kids cross in many scenarios. So I guess that's my question to the DDEC committee. How are we going to kind of use the population numbers and use these classifications to make sense or to provide a recommendation as to what populations we want to center in terms of vulnerability, and then working backwards from that, once we know that, then saying who are the organizations that really represent a grassroots focus in working with these populations and not just more system leaders around the table. Because I remember Dr. Robinson raised that very legitimate concern at our last meeting, that just because it's XYZ entity that's responsible, you know, we don't want the 15th Judicial Circuit Court on our committee. We want an organization that is really kind of intentionally focused, working on a you know, at a community-based level. So I guess that's what I'm wondering, like, you know.
I think that's what we're doing now.
Oh, that's what we're talking about, the numbers and who should be prioritized.
Correct.
Yeah.
I just want to add in again, in case I tried to do that. So even though, for example, you know, foster care and court involved, DJJ, I put in it as my recommendations to try to move those forward. Even though those numbers may be smaller than the population, the outcomes are not as good, you know, are challenging there for those
And a
peers.
lot of those kids are also intersecting with disability. I think there are statistics that prove that people involved in the justice system, the majority of them are people with, a lot of them, undiagnosed disabilities, but definitely struggles that if we could meet those needs would definitely help them. So I think our purpose today is to have this discussion. We have the numbers to give us more information, but we all have knowledge of a lot of these different populations. So what do we think as a group? Where do we think the needs are? What representation do we think is needed?
Kimberly, I'm gonna add, again, I'm gonna throw this out in terms of special populations. I do think that Black male students are a special population, or should be considered a special population.
Is it possible to add that to the special populations?
Yes, I can add it. We currently have Coalition of Black Student Achievement.
I think it's under the top section, the special populations.
Mr. Oswald, what, if any, interaction or intersection would you see that this group has with the superintendent's task force on Black student excellence. I know that some of us participate in that space as well, that's focusing on the attentions of Black students within the district, although I recognize that the work of that committee feels sometimes different than the work of this committee, which this committee really focuses on kind of thinking about and setting policy. But I think that's also something else for us to look at. If we don't prioritize a particular group or special population, is there another advisory group or committee that's connected to the board and to the district that we could leverage and say, the issues that we're raising as it relates to any population, could we transfer some of that request or make those recommendations to some of those other committees and see if they can advance things that maybe we can't advance because they may not be, because they're, I hate to look at it as a winners and losers, right? But there's going to be some groups on this list that we won't be able to prioritize in terms of having a seat on the DDEC with some specific intention, but it doesn't mean that there won't be some group that's working with the district that we can't, bring into our space or share our thoughts with them in their spaces and ask them to take a look at the issues that we're.
Could we have liaisons between some of these board-appointed groups where they're present to report back to their groups and to provide feedback to us as to what others are doing without having voting privileges in our group? Carrie, before.
No, I agree with Marcia. I was thinking, even as we were talking about students that might be undocumented, or another group of students that might be a special population too. And I don't know how many students that is, but like Marcia was saying, should they have a seat at the table? And if they don't, should they have representation or support somewhere else? And I don't know what that particular, like I said, the numbers in that particular group are, but I just wanted to mention that.
I'm sorry, Carrie, which group did you say? I missed it.
I don't know if there's undocumented students or immigrant students, or I don't know what category or group, but I don't know how many that would be. But and I don't even know if that would be.
They're at the top.
It's
undocumented. Okay.
Yeah, obviously we don't track those numbers, so.
Right.
Did someone else raise a hand? I
do not see any hands raised. But just to go back to some of the conversations, so I do want to say that most of this group at the top, these special populations, have other kind of committees, some maybe more formal, less formal, depending on the group. There's, I want to talk about students experience homelessness. There's, obviously there's staff that works with that. There's some group work, collective work going on that we're trying to build around some of that as a district. And Marcia mentioned the Circuit 15, right? There's a committee right around DJJ that's required, that meets formally, right, with the board and meets every month. So it looks different in different spaces. So yeah, and as you met, Black Excellence evolved over, I don't know how many years now, probably 15 or so years, based off a report that came out about graduation rates of our Black students that has evolved in different formats over time. And as Marcia said, has a different feel, right? Trying to get into more detail of recommendations and frontline work on that particular committee. But can representation from this group go to any of these? I don't see any issue there. And Kimberly, for clarification, I didn't know if you meant the more formal school district, school boards advisory committees, if you were speaking to that, or something else.
I don't know some of the groups that were mentioned and what their status is, if they're board appointed. But what I was thinking is if there are groups working on, peripheral or parallel matters to us, if they send a representative or we send a representative so that we have liaisons. And I know I report back to the C advisory on things that are going on here. But if there are groups, I'm not aware of what they're doing. I know there are people here who are involved in other board appointed committees or other school related groups that know what's going on in them, but it might be helpful to us to know that another committee or group is working on an issue and we'll know what they're doing with it so that we're not reinventing the wheel and repeating things, or do we need to work together with them? Cassandra?
Yeah, I just want to be explicitly clear here. So under special population of students, I do not mean Black student population. I mean Black male students.
Thank you.
So I'd love for that to be
I will correct it.
revised. Thank you.
Are there any other thoughts? Okay, then, as far as the liaisons, so let's continue the discussion of, we have also two options. We can ask the board to expand our committee to additional numbers with the risk that we will run into quorum issues, or we can take the missing spots and fill them with a certain number of these. So that's one choice we need to make. And then the other choice is what populations slash organizations do we want to add to our roster?
All right, this group is usually quite more talkative, if I can jump
I
in.
know.
So I would like to hopefully have, that we can at least start, we have two Haitian organizations that have disbanded. So there is an organization, Volunteer Association of America, represents Haitian student population, that we could maybe start there, that could potentially, I would like to see, personally for the school district, that be a quick priority to represent one of those that have disbanded. So I got my legal team. Do I need a motion? Someone hopefully motion to support that?
Cassandra mentioned a group that represents the Black male and the Haitian, but what was the name of the group that you said is specifically Haitian population?
Connect to Greatness.
Connect to Greatness. Does anyone, I don't know all of
And
the
or
groups.
or potentially both, right? So we had two groups.
Right.
Two organizations disbanded that, so if they're representing both, so,
I would ask for feedback with people who are familiar with these groups. We want to definitely get someone who is going to be active and really contribute. So if anyone has any feedback on that, it would be helpful.
so I can tell you Volunteer Association of America has been involved in helping us with some of this lift on the dual language program. They've expressed interest in having the voice here. They've come to school board meetings to speak. And if there's no, I don't know if anybody else has worked with them. But I'm not aware of, and Connect to Greatness, I've heard only through, I'm not familiar with that group, just through what Cassandra has shared. Sounds like nobody wants to make a motion, maybe?
Did we lose Cassandra?
Pardon?
Did we lose Cassandra?
She's still
I'm also,
on. I think she's had to take a call or something.
maybe she stepped away. I'm familiar with the first group that Mr. Oswald spoke about, as I've seen them present at meetings and know that they lend their voices in many spaces. I'm not as familiar with Connected Greatness, but I would also support both organizations if we can get a 2-for-1. Specifically, they focus on the Black male population, and they also have an attention to those of the Haitian Creole descent. So since we have 2 of those organizations that has disbanded, and we have multiple organizations on this committee currently in our current structure representing the same focus area, I don't see why we could not have 2. So I motion to support both organizations in filling the seats that are currently vacant due to some of the dissolution of the agencies.
I second that motion.
Kimberly, you need a
I
discussion?
had a question. I would like to, as a discussion, those are, okay, Haitian organizations were the 2 that we lost. Did we lose any other organizations?
Aspira.
Okay. So there's been a motion and a second. All in favor of adding the 2 organizations to represent the Haitian population. Can we have, Rachel, could you please actually articulate what the motion is so that we can have it for the record?
I think Marsha made the motion and I second it.
Oh, I apologize, Marcia.
Yes, I motion to have Connect to Greatness and
Volunteer of America.
Volunteer of America.
Volunteer Association of America.
I motion to have Volunteer Association of America and Connected Greatness, that these nonprofits join our District Diversity and Equity Committee representing the Haitian Creole population and also supporting Connected Greatness, specifically supporting Black male students. And these are to fill the current vacancies on the DDC for those 2 groups.
I second again.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the motion carries. So we have addressed those. Now we have the vacancy in Aspira. I believe that represents the Latinx population. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
That was my understanding as well.
Yes, that is their representation, Hispanic Latinx community.
Okay, can we move up a little bit on the agencies so I can see them and everybody can? Okay.
Obviously this is not inclusive. I think probably exclusive because this is just what I have for my notes that we discussed.
Right. I was just curious if anyone on this list would fit into that category. And I don't know some of these organizations, and I don't recall what was said about SINSFINs and
We do have El Sol, we have, and anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, Guatemala Maya Center,
yeah.
Hispanic Chamber, Hispanic Education Coalition.
Okay, as far as this vacancy, we don't have to stick to the same population necessarily. So I'm going to ask to move back again to our populations.
I'm working on it. I'm flipping.
Thank you, I appreciate it. There isn't an organization that covers both foster care and court involved, is there?
Not specifically. You have Speak Up for Kids is the organization that I would recommend or Friends of Foster Children specifically for foster care and Speak Up for Kids do support kids that are court involved. I saw that Autumn recommended Guardian Ad Litem, but I think instead of the Guardian Ad Litem program, because that is, just another one of the system informants, that I would probably go with Speak Up for Kids in lieu of the Guardian Ad Litem program. They work very closely with the Guardians program, and then you have Friends for Foster Children.
Best Foot Forward.
Yeah, and Best Foot Forward. Yes, Mr. Oswald, that's another great one. Those would be the organizations. So for this, I would kind of say before we just kind of say, let's, my recommendation would be that we have conversations with those organizations, elicit their interest, and then see if they would make the commitment that is necessary to be made for inclusion. Because I think part of the problem that we have is even with the organizations that have not dissolved, we do not have a level of commitment from some of them, right? We have El Sol. I don't know when is the last time we had representation. I think they would be great to have on this committee and filling the slot for
Suzanne, we do have El Sol here, but they have to get their name appointed, right, at the next.
Oh, okay. They're
no,
waiting
Suzanne.
for new names to be confirmed.
Suzanne is on today now.
But is that what it was, Mr. Oswald? They were waiting for their new representative to be confirmed?
No, that was the Guatemala Mayan Center, and she was board approved.
Okay.
That's Mariana.
Okay.
Blanco.
Are there any other, what are the other organizations that have not been in compliance with the attendance?
So she was on, but she left. Hope she didn't.
I think another one of those organizations is the Urban League, right? And the Urban League, if we got participation for the Urban League, they actually have a Sin Spins program. So again, I'm thinking about organizations that can give us a 2-for-1. They operate one of the local Sin Spins program that's working with court-involved kids. So if we got their participation, we can actually accomplish multiple things if we got the Urban League to be re-engage as an active participant.
And Marsha, in addition to that, too, they do work closely with the Haitian community and the Black boys.
Yeah.
We work with them as well.
Yeah, so they would be a great one. I'd love to just see if we can get them re-engaged and get somebody who can consistently join us, especially now that we have this hybrid option. In person before was quite a challenge for many folks getting to the district and going through that. But if we remain in this hybrid forum, we may get more participation.
Yeah, probably we need to reach out to Thomas because he's our contact with the Urban League, and he's been pretty active in community meetings.
All right. We have an issue, I think. Our quorum dropped.
Okay.
So,
so we're no longer in quorum?
Double checking. What about Sabrina? Amanda, what about Sabrina? No, so we're at 9. So we're currently at 9 again. We had El Sol, but then we lost El Sol. So.
Okay.
And I don't know if she was. Does anybody know if she was on when we took the vote? She was. So I don't know. We'll have to go. I have to go back and look. I don't know if she was on when we took the vote on the 2 organizations. So we have an issue without the quorum. We're going to have to bring this back to our August meeting, and hopefully, because I really like to get this going, because as I told you all before, this does take 2 reads, so it's going to take some time. So hopefully we can finalize an August meeting to get this going.
Mr. Oswald, is there a way that since there's more of us in this meeting, we can send an email addressing that that recommendation, and then to get the approval of the others. Would that work for the district?
You can't do
I'm
it
not
through,
sure if it works for Sunshine.
for Sunshine, no.
Thank you for clarifying that.
I've done that on lots of boards though. So, okay, we are going to have to table the discussion until August, but can we hear the legislative update at this point?
So
Or we have to stop the meeting completely?
I don't have a formal presentation ready for legislative. What I would like to do was to send the link from the board workshop where our I'm going to blank on their titles.
Lobbyists?
Lobbyists, thank you. It's been a long year. Our lobbyists presented to our board to send that link out, which is much more comprehensive than I can. FAD's also provided about a 400-page document. Goes into more detail of all the different legislation as well. So I'll send those two links from that workshop.
Okay.
And I think I provided some updates of things that we are working through as a district on some of those more controversial topics. Oh, wait, Suzanne just came back.
Sorry, I lost my signal there for a while.
Guess what?
Okay.
Suzanne, were you on when we took the vote for 2 organizations?
No. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
May we restate the motion?
Wait, now we lost Cassandra. Hold the phone.
I think she said she had to leave.
So now we're back out of quorum.
Was this to add the 2 organizations to the committee?
Yes,
And what were the 2 organizations?
the Volunteer Association of America, and then what was the other
Connect
one?
to Connect to Great.
Yeah. Can I vote yet? Can I add my vote? I'm not sure
No.
what the process is.
No,
No,
because
I
we're not in quorum. Cassandra is she is a voting. She is the alternate, and I'm mistaken that earlier for PTA. So we're out of quorum.
I'm so
again.
sorry. My whole signal went down, my Wi-Fi, everything.
It's a challenge with these virtual meetings.
Right.
So-
Okay.
So I'd like, so I'll bring this back to really want to get this done in August. So, obviously there'll be probably numerous other updates for that meeting as well.
I have a quick question. You know, I see the Muslim children here. There's no representation from the Muslims, right? So, and there's 2 organizations here in the county. One is American Muslim Association, and then there's the Bangladesh Association. And they are members of our chamber. So my question is, should I talk to them to see if there's any level of interest to participate in this type of committee?
I would propose we have other populations that may, if they are members of your committee, could you represent their concerns, kind of speak to them during your meetings and represent their concerns?
Why?
As a Chamber of Commerce, no, that's not what we do,
Okay.
you see, so.
We
I
can
think
add them to the list.
Yeah, I would add them. Religious minorities are underrepresented and underserved many times, and I think it's our responsibility to represent and look for their interest too.
You know, and at one point, one of the organizations, you know, the Bangladesh, they approached me because the kids they have in school, they have to follow certain rules for eating. So, and apparently the meals, you know, you not eat at school, or they have, you know, so that was an issue that came up, and so we're trying to find a solution But it's a huge, because the school district is so big, you know, so.
Maybe we can have them, in the meantime, present as members of the public and express their concerns, and we as a group could take them up, you know, take on these issues as we feel appropriate until we get to a point. I think we have two questions. Who will replace the missing organizations, and also, do we want to expand? And we can't vote on either one of those.
We can,
but-
we just double checked, we're back to 10, we are at 10 now.
Okay.
So if we can quickly do before the
May we
previous.
repeat the vote that we had earlier? Do we need to restate it exactly?
The motion was to add Volunteer Association of America and Connect to Greatness to fill the two vacancies representing Haitian students, and then a strong representation for black males.
Okay, who moves now? Marcia? Who seconds? Carrie? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Suzanne? Go ahead.
I vote in favor. I vote in favor.
Wonderful.
I was just raising my hand, but yeah,
Thank
I was
you.
voting for.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the motion carries with a quorum.
Great. All right. So then, okay, so
So then we have one other absolute vacancy from an organization that folded, and we have to consider what population or organization we want to fill that spot. And then we need to consider whether we want to add additional spots and also find out the status of some of the people who are not sending representatives in compliance with our policy.
and the discussion was, that I heard, was to discuss with Friends of Foster Care, Guardian Ad Litem, Best Foot Forward, and I'm missing one. As it related to.
And Mr. Oswald, that was Speak Up for Kids instead of Guardian Ad Litem.
Which one?
Friends of Foster Children, Speak Up for Kids, and Best Foot Forward.
Speak Up for
For the
Kids.
foster care and court involved. We said we would approach them and see if there would be interest.
So we can reach out to them. Is there, I don't know if that needs a motion, legal? To see if they would represent, I guess, is the goal to reach out to them and they would be added if one of those are interested?
I think we would then go through the discussion of, if multiple of them are interested, then we'd have to go through the discussion and vote as to which ones we bring in. There's the other question that we might want to resolve. Well, there are a couple. One is, there are other organizations who haven't been sending someone. Are we going to move to wait for them, you know, reach out to them again and find out if they are going to appoint someone new, or are we just going to move on and replace them?
We will try to finalize that for our August meeting and reconnect as we go into the new year to make sure they're going to be represented.
And do we want to make a recommendation to the board to expand so that we can include some of these other groups that are listed? I think we have sufficient members here to vote on that now, and we could make that, you know, request. Or do we need to vote on that plus recommend organizations?
You can vote on the expansion as well. As one, you can put all that as one vote.
Okay.
So now there's a lot of different groups that represent employees, and so
if those groups are not voting members, do we need to present that to the board, or are we allowed to just invite them?
If it's going to be added to the policy, we would have to vote on it
Okay.
as a recommendation for the board to consider.
There was a question raised about whether Cassandra is a voting member.
Yeah, I address it that she is a alternate for PTA,
That's what I thought. Okay.
and I spoke wrong earlier. I stand corrected for the record.
Okay. So does anyone want to make a motion about having non-voting representation that represents the different staff and faculty and administrative populations? Or do we want to discuss that?
So the first three probably have the most impact on our students. Obviously, our teachers are our largest employee group. So the CTA, principal, so, and there's the School-Based Administrator Association. Obviously, they lead a lot of the work of what we discuss. And then I would skip one and go down, obviously, school district. And I forget what that employee group is represented by. Helps group.
And PBA is the police?
PBA is, Police Benevolent Association, or could be school police.
Emmy?
I brought up at the last meeting the possibility of non-voting representation for the school district's African American, Latino, Holocaust, and Gender Studies department, which would be Pete Stewart or Brian Knowles. I don't know if anybody else is part of that department, but I know Pete Stewart already comes to the meetings anyway. Pretty sure he's in that room. So that is something I brought up at the meeting that's missing from this list.
I was putting that under the school district representation.
Okay, I don't know if we need to specifically say that department, because I know school district has like you and so I don't know if we need to section that out specifically, but I do want to make sure that we.
My only concern is that sometimes is that the Office of African American, Latino, Gender Studies, Women's Studies, sometimes people move or things get separated out, and I don't know if I want to. I just worry about tying the policy to so specifics.
Okay.
Versus, I think through the conversations and recommendations of this particular committee, we would have that be the goal, with somebody from that group.
Right. I hear you. So unofficially, it would be.
Well, that's just my.
It wouldn't be included in the policy, but in the directive. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like the directive through recommendation is that we pick the school district from that office.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
And you're under that office now? I didn't realize he was off. See, that's how quick people move around.
Okay, Marsha raised her hand also.
So I was wondering, to Emmy's point, not to lock us in, but could we use language like, for example, or so that we could state some of the listed departments, so that as those of us who may transition, Mr. Oswald, yourself included, and others, that if somebody in the future picks up this policy and said, well, what did they mean by the school district? Is it just anybody from the school district, or could we use something, may include offices like, and name a couple, so that the relative offices that we would want to have staff participate from, at least it's there, not that we're locking it in, but we're giving examples of some of the offices that would be the kind of staff that we would want to hear from in the DDEC. I'm just thinking about like when nobody's here in the future and somebody just reads school district, that could have broad interpretation. Is that a possibility, Mr. Oswald, to maybe parenthetically provide?
I'm looking at my legal counsel.
Okay.
Yolanda?
So it's best to be specific. So if you're wanting a specific department, then you would need to put it in there, but may also leaves a lot to interpretation. The best course of action is probably to leave it in the minutes what the intent of the committee is, what departments, so that if somebody's questioning who is being represented by the district, they're able to go and see that these were the departments that were contemplated when the policy was being revised.
And when we workshop prior to first read, we can state that as well for the record to the board.
Okay, thank you. So then I would also add the multicultural department and whatever that department is that works with homeless kids. McKinney-Vento.
Each one, or, so you say, is this, you talking?
No,
multiple?
like we were saying,
So it could-
options
yeah.
to choose from.
Got it.
Like these would be the options. This office, multicultural, like the offices such as those,
Yep.
and not just the broad spectrum of school district departments, in my opinion.
Yep. Okay.
At the current time, we have staff members coming when they need to address a specific question that we're working on. So we're always free to do that, even if we can't get this.
Mm-hmm. Correct. So my recommendation, if anybody wants to take this so we can move this kind of forward, is to start with Classroom Teacher Association, Principal Association, or school-based, I mean, their formal name is the school-based administration, but something like that. And school district, to start with those particular three. If anybody, since it seems like this committee is pushing or recommending that, so that voice is there, so.
Well, there's one recommendation to do that, and I think I'm hearing another recommendation to add the fourth group.
Well, this is under non-voting, right? So I wouldn't separate
Right.
that from our voting. So if they don't show up, it's not going to affect the quorum issue.
Right. Suzanne Cordero needs to leave at 11:45.
So if you're going to do a recommendation, you better hurry.
Yes. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Motion?
Okay, you have to state what the motion is.
Was it?
To add those three organizations, is that what you were saying?
Motion to add
Those three
the three organizations that were discussed.
CTA,
CTA
Principals Association, a representative, and a school district,
and a school district.
with a focus being on Office of African American, Latino, Women's Studies, Multicultural Department, Student Experience, Homelessness. You got it in my notes there.
I second.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm trying to write that down.
Gabriella.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, the motion carries.
Gabriella.
Gabriella?
No,
Yes?
I mean, she seconded. That's what.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
We were
I
just
heard
cap-
somebody pop up, but I don't see who it is.
We were trying to capture for the minutes. Okay, so just because I know we're going to lose here in a minute, so we're going to reach out to those foster care / DJJ group. So essentially, that would, if we add that, we're still at 22 from where we started without adding any other special populations at this time. So is there any other discussion? Not that I'm trying to drive this, but I do want to try to land this plane in August.
Yes, I understand. Do we want to add additional positions, knowing that that could make more quorum issues, or do we want to stay with 22?
I think Marcia had her physical hand raised.
Marcia?
I'm sorry, I think we talked about 25 at the last meeting, not wanting to go beyond the bounds of 25. But I think at this point, my thinking is that before we add additional positions, we see if we can get re-engagement from some of the groups that we're looking for the attendance. And we talked about prioritizing outreach to ELSO and Urban League, as they would cover some of the populations that we're currently missing and having challenges with. And maybe starting there and see if we can get that level of re-engagement before we add any additional groups to make up some of the other prioritized special populations that we've noted.
Yeah, and yeah, there are some others. Suzanne is for ELSO. She's here. She's the one that leaving.
Oh, Suzanne is here. Okay, yeah,
She's leaving here in a few minutes, but there are some others that we do need to do that with.
Yeah, I think that's probably our best move. See if we could shore up the base and get some re-engagement of some of the organizations that we know are still active but not participating before we add members.
Okay, would you like to make that a motion?
I motion that the DDEC assesses its attendance policy for the organizations who have been inconsistent with attendance and attempt re-engagement prior to adding additional members to the DDEC committee, keeping our current at 22.
Okay, second?
I'll second that. I think that's a good idea.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, the motion carries. To move on before people leave to the board report / agenda. Charmaine normally does the board report, and there have been in the past situations where she has sent out a proposed board statement. Is that still a possibility after I review the minutes, or?
Yes, it is.
Okay, then I plan to
You
do
can
that.
submit a written report to the board.
Okay. And I will do that after I review the minutes. For future agenda topics, we have already discussed the facilities, which we meet after school starts, but I think that's our first available opportunity to discuss that issue. So would we like to put that on the agenda?
I do want to add in, I would also like to bring forward student outcomes. So we'll have the rest of the student outcomes will be out.
Okay.
Which obviously is kind of our core business, as well as school grades, those kind of things. So kind of an academic update.
And then we need to complete this process.
Yes.
So we can put those 3 things on the agenda.
Plenty to keep us busy.
Absolutely.
And any other updates on some of the other previous discussions, I'll put my update.
Okay. So I will entertain motions to adjourn unless there is anything further.
I'd like to say one thing, if that's all right, as a
course.
non-voting member. I guess I should have spoken up at number 3. But I just wanted to say, first of all, happy Pride Month. It's still Pride Month. But I wanted to thank all of the students, parents, community members, members of the group Common Purpose, Compass students, Compass youth, Emmy Kenny was one of the organizers with this group, Common Purpose. If you'd like to join, I believe they meet just about every Thursday evening. Thursday or Wednesday? Wednesday, sorry, Wednesday evening. But what a great group, and the folks, particularly the students, but the folks that came out and spoke, they had an immediate impact. So kudos to Common Purpose. That was such a fantastic thing.
Absolutely.
Autumn, yes. Charmaine is only out today, but since she wasn't here, that's why I was talking about doing the presentation. Okay. I agree, but I will say if anyone is interested in participating in Common Purpose, feel free to email me. And since it's not not committee business, I think you can email me directly.
Kimberly.
I'm putting it down. Okay, so I will now entertain motions to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great summer. We
Thank
will see you
you.
in August.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
August.
Okay. So
It'll be
you'll
August
send me the
25th.
minutes and I will come up
25.
with a statement unless it's something Charmaine should do.
Kim, I think you'll have to submit it.
That's fine. I saw some
Legal,
kind of
right?
like,
Since she chaired tonight. Yeah.
okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you doing all this.
Bye.
All right. Bye.